Hey, Fox News Alert, you're looking at brand new video. Take a look. Protesters smashing the door at Hamilton Hall at Columbia University overnight. These protesters using these violent tactics to get inside the building, demanding the school follow their demands to cut all ties with Israel. OutKick host Tomi Lahren is here. Tomi, we've seen protests overnight, Virginia Commonwealth, UT Austin. I saw some protests from my alma mater, my law school, UCLA. A Jewish student literally being prevented from walking from one part of campus to another, literally being blocked, and when he moved, the protesters moved to block him as well. What do you think about what's going on our quote-unquote institutions of higher learning?
Well, first of all, it's horrifying, but I will say this. There's a moment in the movie Captain Phillips where the Somali pirate looks at the captain and crew and says, "I'm the captain now." And that's exactly what has happened at Columbia. The inmates are quite literally taking over the asylum, and it's the weak leadership from that administration and administrations across the country that have caused this. And this is going to be a ripple effect. There are going to be students across the United States, mostly in blue cities and states, that are going to see what happened at Columbia overnight. They're going to take that as their pass and their cue, and they're going to do horrific things, maybe as bad as what's happening at Columbia, maybe even worse. And it's the administrators that are completely and entirely to blame for this. These students don't just come up with these ideas and feel so entitled and emboldened on their own. They sit back, they observe, they watch the actions. Now, despite what they're displaying to us, these are intelligent students. These are mostly intelligent people. So they're quite aware of the actions with no consequences, and they're going to do as much as they can do, and they're going to push the bounds and the limits until somebody says no. And what really bothers me, Todd, is now NYPD and other police departments across the country are going to have to go in, and they're going to have to handle this, and they don't mind doing that. That's their job. But then you just wait and watch. Then it's going to go from anti-Israel, anti-Semitic, to also being anti-cop, anti-law enforcement. There will undoubtedly be law enforcement officers that are going to get hurt in the process. They're going to be screamed at. They're going to be demonized and demoralized. So you just add that as the icing on the cake. This is all entirely preventable if you have the will to keep your campus and your community safe. Unfortunately, there's a lot of liberals and a lot of liberal institutions that don't have the intestinal fortitude to do that, and that is on high display for the last several months.
And Tomi, I wouldn't be surprised if, to your point, if all that happens that you said happened actually ends up happening, if there's a new defund the police movement. Like, oh my God, these cops came in and disrupted our protest. We need to defund the police again. And then all of our cities and towns go into even more disarray than they already are. I'm creating a new segment right now. It's called Tomi Justice. Tomi, what punishment should these students and the outside agitators face?
Well, listen, I think they need to face stiff consequences. What you're seeing at Columbia is what I believe the liberal news media has been shrieking about for a couple of years, an insurrection, a riot. And, you know, again, going back to precedents being set, when you look at the summer of 2020 and what was allowed to happen, a lot of these students, a lot of these outside agitators are taking their cue from 2020, knowing that their actions were consequenceless, and also knowing that in New York City it was actually rioters and not peaceful protesters that received settlements for their actions. So, again, another precedent in place. But I'll also say, before this turned into an insurrection where they actually took over a campus building, I would have said, you know what, let them have their encampment outside. Lock the doors, turn on the sprinklers, and blast God Bless the USA by Lee Greenwood on repeat. And that would have taught them a lesson. I have a feeling they would have dispersed quickly. But now it's obviously elevated to such a level where the authorities are going to have to get involved. And I say throw the book at every single one of them. No cashless bail, no catch and release. It's time to teach these entitled students that this is not a daycare that they're living in, and it's time to face consequences now before they're, 25, 35, 45 years old and doing something much, much worse.
I've heard people blame COVID lockdowns for these protests, the thought process being, well, they want to be part of a group because they were in isolation before. During COVID. Join a sports team. Like, hang out with some friends. Don't destroy a campus. I think it's deeper than that, Tomi. I think it all comes down to overconfidence that your opinions matter more than others, and I call that the leftist playbook. Tomi Lahren, thank you for your insight. Fox and Friends continues our breaking coverage. Protest at Columbia.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.